if I'm a therapist who not only has been in my own therapy for over a decade, but I'm also a therapist. I have a PhD. I have been in this field for a long time. I have gotten education, formal training. I mean, I'm really privileged with the knowledge I have. If I'm navigating these hard feelings in this way, what about all the people who don't have the tools and resources that I have?
Welcome to You May Contribute a Verse. I'm Brenna Jennerette, rock climber, mom, and Kidlit author of The Law of Birthdays, illustrated by Marina Condra. I'm joined by my co-host, Josh Munkin, dad, Kidlit author, and science communicator. This episode is proudly sponsored by Canadian children's book publisher Tealmore Press, where every book sold supports reforestation. Check out Tealmore's full catalog at tealmorepress.com, including titles like Naked, Supermoon, and newly released Fungi Are More Than Mushrooms, written by Alicia Gabriel and illustrated by Vivian Sarkny. This nonfiction title will fascinate kids and adults alike. Make sure to order yours today. Today's guest is Danielle Render Turmaud, Kidlit author, therapist, and host of podcasts You, Me, and the Writing Journey, and founder of Take Your Kid to Publishing Day, a free virtual event happening July 19th, where kids can meet and engage with authors, agents, and editors to explore the business of publishing. This was an especially fun episode because though we both host writing podcasts, we come at them from very different angles. We had a fascinating chat about the mental side of writing, in particular, how the accumulation of rejections can affect us and some of the tools that we can deal with the fallout. If you haven't checked out Danielle's podcast before, make sure to give it a listen for more tidbits like this. And check out her Instagram page for all the details on Take Your Kid to Publishing Day. Here's Danielle's verse.
Brennan and I have never met in person either, so it's a level playing field.
Yeah, wait, you know John?
I do. John was actually on my podcast a few months ago.
No way.
Yes.
That's
and he,
awesome.
We had a phenomenal conversation about publishing and writing with a purpose, and totally nerded out in that conversation. And yes, he's a wonderful, wonderful human.
He's great. Oh my gosh, I don't know how I missed that. I'm gonna have to go back and listen to that now because, yeah, that's so funny. Like he's, obviously involved with our podcast as like editing, and then he sort of branched off on his own as publisher, and now we're just sort of like friends. And anyways, yeah. Awesome.
Which one is his episode, by the way?
Oh, let me look right now. So I only have season 1 that was one. I think it was. You know what? I feel like it was like episode 11. Did I get that right? Hold on, let me see. Let me look this up.
Ooh.
Yeah, so You, Me, and the Writing Journey, I think he was episode 11. Let me pull this up.
Oh, yep, there it is.
Boom, got it. Episode 11.
Episode 11. Wow, nailed it. Well, for listeners, so first of all, to introduce you, this is Danielle, and we are doing our very first crossover episode on The Verse Show because she also has a writing-related podcast called You, Me, and the Writing Journey. So we're going to talk all things publishing, and apparently she's already talked to John and done a previous crossover episode. So amazing. We're just going to add to the volume, to the novel here.
Yes.
Danielle, would you like to do an introduction of who we are as well for the first time?
Yes, that sounds great. Yes, and this is Josh and Brenna, who are the phenomenal hosts of You May Contribute a Verse that I have been listening to for a while, and it is so fun to meet both of you. I know you're both Kidlit authors, and I'm going to let you both share anything else about yourself so listeners can hear about you as well.
For me, that's all that's germane to the conversation.
Amazing. That is, first of all, I love that you listen to the show. So this is to give the listeners a little bit of background. So the reason this episode came to be is because Danielle and I are both in an online Kidlit community called Mighty Kidlit, the Mighty Kidlit, hosted by, it's run by Michelle, and how do you say her last name? Ziemke? Is that right?
I think that sounds right.
Okay.
Sorry, Michelle,
I'm so sorry.
We'll fix it in post.
We are messing up your name. But the Mighty Kidlit community, go check it out. There's lots of just like, community resources and sort of like, just boosting people up and, submission opportunities and all that kind of stuff and like webinars.
And it's free, which is really hard to find. So just really championing that. Mm-hmm.
Yes. We'll put it in the show notes. Anyone who wants to check it out. Anyways, Danielle and I met in there, and we both were like, wait a minute. You do a podcast, I do a podcast, like we should do one together. So here we are
Yeah.
We
chatting
both
about
have,
all of the
for
things.
audio podcasts, huge smiles and big energy. Huge smiles are not
So much.
not as visible.
Right.
Hey, I think that is great. I love that it's bringing that energy in.
Yep.
Yes,
For sure.
I remember when Brenna and I connected. Brenna was saying, "Oh, I hadn't heard your podcast before," which listeners is called "You, Me, and the Writing Journey," by the way, and it's a podcast that meets at the intersection of literary and mental health because there's so many phenomenal podcasts out there about craft and there's not as many about the journey and our hearts and the process. And so, being a Kidlit author and a therapist, that's important to me. And so Brenna was really kind and was like, I'm going to go listen to your podcast. And I went, wait a second, Brenna, I know your name. Are you who I think you are? And if so, can we do a crossover episode? Because that would be so fun. And here we are.
Yes, and here we are. Yes, one of my like 15 minutes of fame, or 15 seconds of fame maybe. And she was like, wait, are you who I think you are? Probably.
We haven't hit
one.
the don't you know who I am state of
the level of
notoriety
fame.
yet. Yeah.
Totally. Once I do, though, publishers, I'm coming for you.
I'm gonna play that
Don't
card.
I
you
love
know who
that.
Constantly.
I love that.
Please publish
I
all
love
of my
it.
things.
Yes, that's so great.
Okay, so let's take a minute though to dive into that because you're right, there are so many craft podcasts out there and just, like and they're all warranted, they're all great, adding to sort of the canon of Kidlit. These are all really helpful. But there aren't a lot that talk specifically, like you're saying, about that cross section between writing and mental health, which is, I mean, there is a lot there. Like, just, just saying those two things, I'm like, duh, of course there should be more on this, Like, so much of, we don't talk about it in Kidlit enough, but there, you talk about the heartbreak of querying and rejection and just the brutal nature of the industry. That right there is enough to sort of fuel a podcast for, years and years with the trauma of being a Kidlit author. But even beyond that, I mean, you think about your most famous writers, like Stephen King comes to mind. That guy is totally fueled by, mental health stuff and trauma and just whatever. And he is very open about, his story and sort of how he funnels these things into his writing. So I guess the root question is, tell us how you came to this intersection. I know you're a therapist, but also, your writing and your journey. Like, how did you decide this was a thing that needed to have a light shed on it?
Oh, thank you so much for asking that, Brenna. It's really, honestly, like for most of us, it's a personal journey. So I have been a therapist and a professor of counseling for a while, and about a year ago, I unexpectedly beautifully dove into this industry when I decided I wanted to write a children's book and get it published. I've been writing for a long time. I'm published in academia, but this type of publishing, right, traditional publishing was a whole new world. But being me, a go-getter, I was like, I can do this. I had a friend who's in publishing. I was like, I'm going to dive in. I had no idea the challenges that were ahead. And listeners that have heard my podcast hear this a lot. I'm a human who has struggled with complex trauma. I deal with complex PTSD. I'm an OCD neurotype, so I live a life of navigating anxiety. And so that's already my baseline, right? That's already my neurotypes and who I am. And then I dove into querying and the absolute pain
the
of the
perfect thing
constant
for you.
passes. And essentially going, I feel like a kid, look at my beautiful art, do you like it? And then even hearing from critique partners and agents or not hearing, I mean, just all of the constant criticisms and judgment, and not intentionally harsh, right? But it doesn't matter to our nervous systems. It feels that way. And so as I started navigating the journey I started thinking, whoa, if I'm a therapist who not only has been in my own therapy for over a decade, but I'm also a therapist, I have a PhD, I have been in this field for a long time. I have gotten education, formal training. I mean, I'm really privileged with the knowledge I have. If I'm navigating these hard feelings in this way, what about all the people who don't have the tools and resources that I have?
Yes. Yes.
How ready does your background make you to be resilient in this industry? Yeah, I mean, you just said it's still hard, right?
Yeah.
Like you know the tools and things that we need to do to make ourselves resilient, but you still feel it nonetheless.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I think I love that. I'm sitting here and I'm trying to think about what that has been like for me. Two things come to mind. The first is there is absolutely nothing we can do to stop our nervous system from feeling the pain of rejection in the way that it naturally does. So I actually on a podcast episode with Literary Blend with Demi Michelle Schwartz, we talked about how rejection in the brain actually literally fires, makes parts of the brain activate as if we're feeling literal pain in our body. And so when she and I talked about that, I went, Demi, like, what I want people to know, including myself, is that when we feel that pain, it's not our fault. It's not a choice. It is literally our body physiologically being wired to feel rejection as pain, because rejection is threatening for us being creatures who are meant to be in community. And me knowing that was huge, right? Like if I didn't know that, there'd have been a lot more shame going into it of why do I feel this painful? Why can't I navigate this? I think my answer, Josh, is that it helps me feel the pain or the feelings, whatever those waves are, deal with them, work with them and through them, and then keep going in a way that if I didn't have those tools, I don't think I would have had, I would have the resilience. I don't even like the word resilience, the capacity to keep going, because those pangs take a toll over time.
So, okay, so quick follow-up question. So this is like super helpful to know, right? Like there's nothing you can do about it. It's not like you have a choice about like feeling bad or upset or even jealous if like there's someone else gets a book deal and you don't. Like these are normal emotions. Okay, so in terms of the actual pain and working through that, what is like one, maybe two, like actual like things that our listeners can take away to do when you feel like that pain of rejection? Like what do you actually do to work through it to get to the other side?
Aside from the first step, which is blaming agents and editors for being mean.
Right. Right. Blame is always the way to go.
Right.
I think this is
That's
really
helpful.
ironic because I am actually recording an episode tonight on the mental health for editors. So I love that you said that so much, Josh, because I'm over here like, let's help editors and agents too. No.
To be
yes,
clear,
aside from
they
the
go
blame.
through great hard times, for sure.
Oh my
Not
goodness.
any easier
Oh,
for them.
absolutely. No,
Yeah.
absolutely. I literally was just doing research on burnout for that conversation. Yes. So
Oh man.
I think the first thing, which is in therapy, we talk about how one of the most powerful things is naming it. Like when we first understand what's happening in our brain and our body, it really empowers us to not feel so helpless and to really to have that understanding that we can then go, okay, if I know what's happening, I can do something with it. So I think first, all of us giving ourselves permission to go, okay, this really hurts. And it's okay that it hurts. It's normal that it hurts. There's nothing wrong with me that this hurts. It doesn't matter if I've been in the industry for 5 months, 15 years. It really doesn't matter. It might sting less as we have more practice with it, but it's also okay if sometimes it doesn't. So first, I think acknowledging it. For me personally, and also this is something that, again, and I'm not a therapist for all of the listeners, but just encouraging as just what research says can be helpful to work through emotions. One of the things I personally do is I try to move my body. So one of the things that is challenging is that really intense stress, emotions, trauma can get stored in our body and literally within our muscles, within our body. And so I try to walk, or for me, boxing, everyone's body is able to move in different ways, but I try to move my body so that I don't literally feel stuck in the pain or the emotions.
Let's not move too far beyond the fact that you said boxing is a coping mechanism. which
I
feels
love
very
that.
healthy and very cathartic.
Yeah.
You just need to hit something, Josh. Sometimes you just need to hit
100%.
I feel that.
100%.
I went to a boxing class one time and I was sparring with someone and it was like the teacher and the guy looked at me and he goes, "You have a lot of anger to get out." And I was like, "Dude, I'm a trauma therapist. You're correct. I do." Like, there's a lot of shit in this world.
Yeah, right? Or alternately, I'm a Kidlit author, so yeah, don't get too close to me.
Every punch is a rejection.
There's a lot in
Absolved. Yeah.
That would have been such a better response to say, "You're right. I write children's books. I'm angry."
Yeah, right, exactly. And he'd be like, "What?" Be like, just don't even think about it. Just move along. Just move along.
Yeah. Just take my punches.
Quick note to the listening audience. I love that you said move your body because specifically, oh shoot, this is going to be way in the future from when we air this, but go back, listen to our Bonnie Goldberg episode, which just aired 1 week ago from present time. But she has a whole book on, writing and how to move your body and sort of do it specifically for some, the writing community. Like how do you sort of get, in your body and write from that place or move emotions through. So anyways, a good pairing if you're listening to this. Check out the Bonnie Goldberg episode. Yeah.
From
I
6
love
months
that
ago.
one. Perfect timing. I love it.
Right.
Right.
Right. I mean, it's fresh in my brain because we just published it, but yes, it'll be in 6 months from now when you're listening to this. But also, okay, so I have one more follow-up question based on that because I always think about because that pain that you feel, I kind of feel it in my body and think about it as these hits that are so slowly sort of eroding my nervous system or my capacity or resilience or whatever you want to call it. There's some sort of hourglass dripping away or eventually I will run out of capacity to deal with this. So I guess is that true? And if it is, how can we sort of build that back up so that we're never sort of running it down to the ground or we're never out of that capacity to sort of bounce back or get back on track?
I think it could be true. I don't think it has to be though. And I think the hard thing with that is it's really individual for each of us. So our ability we each have to find our ways in the journey to let that pain be pain in the moment versus, like you were saying, this collective buildup, which again, for each of us is going to look so different, whether it is moving our body or having a community that's always there to build us up, which I highly, highly recommend, or therapy, or having little rituals or activities we do to put some of the pain down. I can't remember who the author is. If you're listening, love what you did. Sorry, I don't remember your name. There was something I saw on Twitter X one time where there was an author with every single pass they got, they painted a flower on a fence. Did you all see that?
No, but that's
it was
very
really
cool.
It was really beautiful. So the passes became something meaningful for them, where over time it became a beautiful piece of art. And so I even think about for those of us who find if there's a way for us to externalize or make meaning out of those passes, which I mean, the truth is in our journey, we will deal with hundreds of passes. It is normal. It is expected. But finding ways for our system to make it meaningful and even celebrate it, if that resonates with our system, finding it as
or turning it into something else. I love that, transforming it. Because I mean, and a lot of writers, I mentioned Stephen King already, but he, a lot of writers will take not necessarily their writing trauma, but whatever trauma it is and sort of put, funnel that into your writing. And so you're making it something else and you're putting it out into the world to sort of build a community around. So that's really helpful. Interesting.
Before we were talking, I actually was looking into some research around burnout, and out of the 6 factors that research continues to cite around what are some of the most common factors that contribute to burnout, One of them is lack of control, which we have in the writing journey all the time, as we all know.
So hard.
But one of them that felt really, really, really potent to me this morning is does the reward no longer actually feel like it is equal to the work that we're putting in? Like, does the extrinsic or even intrinsic rewards no longer match the work that we're putting in or the motivation? And as I sat with that, I went, whoa, whoa, whoa. For the writing journey, I think that's probably what happens for a lot of us over time is we put years and years and hours into work. And unfortunately for some of us, the extrinsic rewards are very minimal, especially in Kidlit, when I know picture book authors like myself, we're not looking at big income rewards. Not that we're doing it for that, but over time, the amount of hours and time you put into it takes away from other things in life. And so I was thinking about this in relation to your question, Brenna, and I'm curious for all of us, could we just explore together, the three of us, are there ways that we could keep those intrinsic rewards going when the extrinsic rewards are not really tangible? And I don't know. I don't feel like I have an answer. So I'd love for us to just explore together, being three Kidlit authors who are trying to figure it out ourselves.
Also, nicely done turning the question back on us and just generating a discussion out of it.
This isn't her first time, Josh.
Yeah, right. I mean, you're a therapist, so, how do you feel about that? You've asked that every day.
Right.
That's
well,
so great.
I cope with comedy as my answer.
I mean, very fair. I'm sure the writing journey gives you a lot of material to work with, Josh.
So sure. Much. So I'll go first because this is something that I've been doing actually since it's been like a couple of years now, about 2-3 years. 12 by 12 does every year she does a 12 days of Christmas or 12 days of holiday, maybe just, to generally make it available to everyone, but at the end of the year. And one of those is she tells you to write down, all of the good things that have happened over the year and to look at them and actually celebrate them and sort of have them. And the first time I did it, I was like, oh, this is great. And I could remember, the big ones, but I couldn't remember everything. And I was like, I think what I'm going to do is just keep a running tab of all of the good things that happen specific to writing over the year. So I have an open Google Docs in my drive that just says good things. And for this year, it says 2025. And then I separate it by months and bullet point. And anytime something good happens, I go in and I just write it down. So when I'm having a really rough time or a terrible day or whatever, I can go back in and be like, oh yeah, I gave a really good critique to my critique partner, or my critique partner told me that this book was fantastic and the most creative thing she's ever read in her life. And those little things sort of added up because they each sort of give you a ping of oh, I'm on the right track, or oh, I hold this person's writing in high regard and they told me that they think my stuff is really good. Or just Danielle recognized me in The Mighty Kidlit and knew who I was. That's a big deal, So you sort of put these things on the list and it adds up over time in a way that they're not things you can hold, but I can look at the document and be like, oh, okay. It's not such a bad year. I actually have all of these things that have been going really well. So that for me is really helpful. The sort of external, I guess. I am becoming part of the Kidlit community. I am a permanent fixture. People respect, the podcast and what we're doing and, my writing. And so these things are important. Those are the things that I can sort of look to.
Yes,
okay, well,
because in those moments.
Oh. I don't have as well thought out response or coping mechanism. Sorry, Danielle, go ahead.
Sure, yours is going to be great. I was just thinking how ingenious that is, because when the internal rewards don't feel big enough, because in those moments when we have those big feelings, the truth is our body is feeling something and it's going to be hard to shift out of that state internally because it just needs to feel what it is. But then you're bringing your own external object, quote unquote, not really words, but you're bringing your own external reminders in of, hey, I'm actually doing a really great job and I'm doing the thing and it's okay. I love that.
Yeah, it's helpful. It's time for this week's book reviews. Josh's review for this week is his second biography in a row. Prairie Boy, Frank Lloyd Wright Turns the Prairie into a Home is a great entryway into possibly the most iconic and famous American architect that we've ever seen. Its art is visually distinct from Wright's architectural style, but consistent enough to evoke what you get by seeing his creations. And it also does what great biographies do, which is to be applicable both to people who know the person and those who are getting an introduction to him for the first time. For Josh, like probably a lot of folks, the buildings and vibe are familiar, but the history and context behind who Wright was is new. And it's that history combined with the art and depiction of his longing and passions that will make those unfamiliar with his work interested to learn more and to help their kids learn more. My review for this week is for Jim, 6 True Stories About One Great Artist, James Marshall, by a longtime friend of the pod, Gerald Connors. This book has already come out to rave reviews, and it's no wonder as to why. Like James Marshall, Gerald's illustrations and storytelling appear simple, which is part of their charm and kid-friendly allure. But anyone who knows Gerald knows how much of himself he invests into making each illustration and each sentence just right. It takes a lot of work to make something look as easy as Gerald does. I've read a lot of picture book biographies, but none have captured their subject as acutely as Gerald. And not only because he turned Marshall and his friends into characters from his books, but because he chose to tell Marshall's life story in 6 bite-sized, kid-friendly accounts. A must-have for any library. Wow, Gerald, I can't wait to see what comes next. Don't forget to get your own library reviews and requests in. It's the number one way to help an author's sales. And if you want to support the pod, make sure to check out our Linktree at linktree/firstshow to get a community shout-out, buy merch, become a Patreon, or sign up for our newsletter at brennagenerick.com. And now, back to our show.
So how do we, let's remind ourselves of the question, which is how do you keep yourself getting dopamine spikes and not getting discouraged from what we're doing?
You're not
basically
wrong.
No.
Yeah.
How do we keep the adversity of it from being overwhelming? And you get to a certain point, I get to a certain point where, it feels like you're walking down the hall, you want to walk a certain pace, and the person in front of you is interminably slow. And for me, it's a reminder that it's okay to slow down, that this industry only moves at a certain pace. Keep walking, but do it in a pace that is more satisfying to you. And also, it's diversifying my time investments beyond putting all my eggs in the basket of traditional Kidlit publishing. This podcast continues to be very satisfying to do and is constant momentum into the future that helps me feel good. Chasing down other side projects and opportunities that scratch that same itch is also great. And I will manifest this side project that Brenna, you and I have talked about. I don't know, Danielle, do you know LeVar Burton reads? No, maybe not. No, you know LeVar
of Reading
LeVar
Rainbow.
Burton. Yeah, LeVar Burton of Reading Rainbow, of Star Trek Next Generation. Yeah. Anyway, 13
Sorry,
seasons.
I'm really bad
he
at
had.
names. You said Reading Rainbow,
No.
and I'm like, yes.
Yeah. So 13 seasons he had. He just creatively read short stories that he likes. 30 to 45 minute podcast. Diversifying my time to me means, if traditional publishing is only going to go so far, can I leverage everything else that we've done with the Kidlit community to work on a side project like that is, to your point about burnout, completely under my control? Could I do another podcast where we elevate other Kidlit manuscripts and authors in an audio only format that is accessible in a different way? So chasing down projects like that, while keeping the other irons in the fire, I guess, is the way to the way that I cope with it.
Yeah, giving ourselves back a little bit of control in an industry that is not only highly slow, but highly uncontrollable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. At at every level and for everyone. That sometimes gives me a little bit of solace because I'm like, well, it's not just me. It's not just my agent. It's not just that editor. It's like across the board, everyone's just trying to like hold on for dear life and like figure
We
out
all
like
want to make it
what
happen.
can we
Yeah.
yeah. So it's, in that way, it's like, okay, we are all in this together, even though it doesn't feel like that all the time because writing is solitary. But to Josh's point, the podcast has created that like connection and that sort of community where every week Josh and I get to talk to people about like, no, it was hard for me too, or like this is what my writing journey looks like, or I also had something diet acquisitions, or like, and it's sort of this like insight into what everyone else is doing, and you're not like, oh, it's not just me. Okay.
The worst ones are the ones, and you know who you are if you're listening to this. The worst ones are the people who come on and then they tell stories about how quickly it happened for them and how they got full book deals within a year
Adam
of starting
Rex,
writing.
we're talking to
Yeah,
you.
right.
Who famously his
Called
agent came
out.
to him. Yeah. I mean, he's Adam Rex, so I mean, yeah. But like, one of the best
Love
of the
that.
best agents, and he came to Adam and was like, actually, I'd love to represent you. I'm like, what? I'm like, that's your story to getting an agent.
You have the best origin story ever.
I know this guy. I'm just like, all right. But anyways, yeah.
Yeah. Josh, you said something that really resonated deeply with me because as I shared with both of you a little while ago, I'm one of those humans, OCD neurotype, complex trauma, which also means one of my best coping strategies in life has been to bust down doors and make things happen for me. I got offered a dean position in academia before I was 30. Like that's
a big deal.
Doesn't really happen.
Yeah.
And
wow.
that, like, just to get to show you, like, who I am, where I was like, I'm going to climb the ladder. I'm going to make it happen. And especially as, like, a woman in academia, right, with sexism and all the things. So that is who I am. And the thing that I've been thinking about so often lately is the truth is what I want in my life is to be present and embodied and actually living versus surviving. And doing is great, but it also can be survival mode. And I don't want to be in survival mode the rest of my life. It's going too fast. I want to actually be in the now. And one of the, I say very begrudgingly, things that publishing has been teaching me, and again, I say very begrudgingly, is I have to give myself permission to slow down. I can write 10 picture books in 2 months. And honestly, that doesn't make me get published any faster. It is... What's most important is to actually just live in the passion, live in doing the things I want to do, be who I want to be now, and what will happen, what will happen. And again, I'm going to say it again. I'm very begrudgingly saying that publishing is teaching me this, but it's been a really beautiful lesson because I do want to slow down in life, and it's kind of forcing me to, even though it's painful sometimes.
There's a tension there that I want to acknowledge because I think we all feel it. And I'm not the only one probably that feels this way, but I'll frame it in terms of, my own personal trauma. My dad passed when he was 59, and that's a very real and tangible example of, if I want to frame it in a really cynical way, that means I've make 15 years at least, probably logistically a lot more. But, when I'm in my most cynical, I've got 15 years to make things happen, and reconciling, allowing things to go slow with the reality that, even if it's not 15 years, we've all only got so much time. It's hard because you can't always get what you want, to quote the Rolling Stones. But also, reconciling that means finding another way to be satisfied and to your point, to live rather than just survive and wait and struggle.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. There's this sense of urgency that, now granted, publishing does have it sometimes, especially when things speed up, right? It goes slow until it doesn't. But there's this sense of urgency that capitalistic cultures, especially like the United States or other westernized cultures, really can infuse into our being of like, I have to do, I have to prove, I have to be successful, I have to grind. And there is something strange about publishing that, for at least large portions of it, again, not all of it, but when things are going slow, it does beckon us to think and consider about what life would look like if we weren't feeling so urgent all the time. Yeah. In this conversation, I'm noticing I was thinking about what is something that I've been doing that's been helping me. One is, the podcast, You, Me, and the Writing Journey podcast, it's the same. Every time I have an episode, I leave so inspired just talking with people in the writing community and hearing the gems of wisdom and passion and just their heart and how they're navigating all of the hard and beautiful things they are. One of the things I do too is kind of similar to what you were talking about, Brenna. I just started recently trying to externalize more my pride in my work and make it real for myself. So no matter what happens or how long it takes, I have this. So listeners, you can't see this, but I'm going to show Josh and Brenna. I have a little, I don't know if you can see it. I have a little submission board that I created for some of my books on sub right now.
Aww.
So I have like a little woman superhero and a pride heart and words be brave and a little piece of paper that says take your daughter to work day that my daughter did for a book we have in submission. And every time I look at it, it just gives me that pang of dopamine, Josh, because I have this sense of pride in I love these stories no matter what happens to them, no matter if I find the right person, the right place, the right time, because so much of it is all of those things put together.
Yeah.
No matter what, I love these stories. And I also know that they've touched people, whether it's my critique partners or my agent or my daughter, that they matter and they matter to me. So that helps my heart.
And I will say for those listening, it was very adorable. You called it a submission board, but for those listening, you do, Danielle, have versions of those on your website, right? There's a page that looked like it had.
It has some. Oh yeah, it has like little editor cards for books that I have on submission. Yeah.
Thematically. With some comps and things, but that strikes me as a very healthy activity to sort of package up your work in that way and visualize it, right?
Yeah, it is a lot of fun to see it come alive in colors and themes and like get the essence of it in an artistic way in addition to words. Yes. Yeah.
So I have something similar this is my office wall. So I have like pictures and stuff, but then I have
episode. Sorry, everyone.
My book. Yeah. Sorry, everybody. So I have like pictures and stuff on the back of the wall. But one of my favorite things is something that my kid made for me. So I wrote this nonfiction picture book based on this story, and my kid has known about it for so long. He did the cover of the book, and then it says author and then illustrator, and then Finfin left the book blank so I could put my story in there. So like this to me is like, not only does he know about my books and he will ask about them, but now he's an artist. He is an amazing illustrator, but he like illustrated the whole cover for me and then gave it to me as a present to like make my book like a thing. So that for me is is like a tangible thing that is just like amazing and that I love.
There's an idea that as we were talking that came up that was not my idea. It is Kimberly Hork, who is an author who was on my podcast a little while ago, and we were talking about navigating disappointments in the journey. So Kimberly did this really great idea. Kimberly had a debut cancellation, which is absolutely brutal. I just gut-wrenching
heartbreaking
for any of us. Like one of our worst fears, right? And Kimberly came on and talked about that and was so incredibly just caring and vulnerable to do that for all of us and help us hear how she navigated that. But she did something that I loved. So when her debut was canceled, she made her book come to life in a really special way, where she created like an Instagram account that's talking about sharing kindness with the world, which was actually to promote the book. But when the book was canceled, she ended up doing it anyways because that's what the book was about. And I remember sitting here when she was talking and going, whoa, Kimberly, you literally brought your book to life. And so something I've been thinking about is how can I make my books come to life in the world? And, for most of us, it's either about humor or love or sappy things like me. I'm all about sappy stuff because I'm a therapist, and why would you expect anything else? Um, but that's one thing that I'm sitting here and I'm like, what if we can do that in our own lives, whether it's something like that, or for me, Take Your Daughter to Work Day, a book I have on submission right now, actually inspired a publishing event that I'm hosting for children this summer called Take Your Kid to Publishing Day, a
Oh,
free
that's
virtual
cool.
event for kids where they get to meet with agents and authors and editors in the publishing world and hear stories and hear about what it's like in their jobs, and show them what's possible for them in the world, just like Take Your Daughter to Work Day does. And so
Very
I
cool.
know for me that has like been so powerful to go, no matter what happens with this book, obviously fingers crossed it gets picked up, but it's already making a difference in the world by me finding ways to bring it to life in creative ways. So just like that is a really cool way. I feel like, at least for me and Kimberly, what if we all find ways to make our books come to life in our little worlds around us?
Love that.
I want to compare and contrast a little bit
Go for it.
because, as I've acknowledged frequently on the podcast, I have a corporate writing job that requires a great deal of mm, dispassion about what otherwise would be my own creativity. And I feel that dispassion or unattachment come out in some ways, but not all, with the things that I write. Um, and what I'm curious about exploring is does that open you up for more vulnerability when you put so much weight behind your stories? Because the
Mhm.
alternative is you write something, give it over to the powers that be, and then let the powers that be have it and move on and let sort of fate decide. Um, what you're talking about it's a very different type of believing in your work.
Mhm. Oh, I mean, I'll answer for myself, and I'm curious for both of you because I'm sure you have your heart stories out there too. Absolutely. I mean, those stories that I have on submission right now that are pieces of my own heart or pieces of what I really want to be out in the world, or I mean, there's one called Who Can I Be that actually literally has pieces of my own story and my own journey with sexism in it. And absolutely, those passes feel much more challenging versus, oh, I mean, I love all of my stories, but versus those ones that I'm like, oh, I love this and I'm going to write it because it's fun versus because it's me. Um, at least for me, yes, it definitely feels, and yet the vulnerability feels powerful too. Like it doesn't feel like a pit. I don't want to say pitiful. That doesn't sound right, but like hopefully you'll track. It doesn't feel like a fawning vulnerability or a pitiful vulnerability. It almost feels like a really powerful vulnerability of, this is how we make change in the world, is by being authentically ourselves in a world where there's only one us, and hope that encourages and inspires somebody else. At least for me. Doesn't mean that the passes aren't hard, but yeah. What about you two?
Bravely vulnerable is a powerful concept.
There is, so I have picture books, are a whole different beast, but like we talked about before, sort of branching out into different genres or trying different things helps to sort of keep the spark or the motivation alive. So
Yes.
I tried my hand at a YA novel in verse, which was really like fun to write in a lot of ways because the discipline was so different, and also really difficult to write in a lot of ways because this book is based on my own life, my like end of high school and then my freshman year in college. So much can happen in that time frame. It's a lot of like first love, like first heartbreak, like first best friend. So it's like this really intense, like emotional journey of a book, which is why I wrote it in verse, because it really lends itself to that sort of writing. But this is also one that I think I don't know yet whether or not like I will actually show it to anyone who may be able to do anything with it. This might be one that I had to write for myself because it does mean a lot, and I think it also helped me sort of like move through a lot of it. Because there was a lot of like sort of traumatic stuff that happened in there. Like my best friend from college actually passed away 12 years ago now, maybe 15. So, you know, writing her and bringing her to life in this way was really like, it was like comforting and also like really heartbreaking. And to sort of like put her on paper was almost like, oh God, like, if I show this to somebody, are they going to get it? Like, are they going to love her the way I loved her? Or is it going to be like, are they not going to get it? Is it going to be confusing? Which that's not something I don't know if I could take that kind of a rejection, you know? So
Yeah.
that one is almost too much of me. Like I'm too invested, but I think it was worthwhile because it helped me move through a lot of that stuff and sort of see it from a bigger point of view, a bigger perspective. So those I think 100% do hurt more. They leave you much more vulnerable. And that piece specifically is very much like that, where I'm like, I don't even know if I want to show this to too many people. But yeah, so that's kind of how I feel about it. What about you, Josh?
Again, I should have just continued and let you go second because you have a much more thought out response than I do. But again, I mean, I try to be not particularly precious, and I'm responding slowly because I am precious, as everyone is, about the things that I write. They all contain pieces of me. None, I don't think, is as autobiographical as the two stories that you describe. But everything. So I was just listening to your. Okay, hold on. I gotta remember so I can say everybody's name right. And I clicked away from it. I was just listening to your bonus episode on critiquing, which I found very poignant.
With Lisa Goldie.
This is with Lisa Goldie. Yes. Sorry, I had to just make sure. And you talked in that episode about, or you both talked about critiquing for the what and the why, and bringing out someone's true story, emphasizing the vision that they have for it, which I found really useful and is always something that I try and keep in mind for the things that I write. It's not necessarily does it have a piece of me, but does it have a what and a why about which I feel really important and precious. And so balancing the care in feeling like the message that I'm trying to send is really valuable for the world to hear. Also with the understanding that the world does not need to care about this particular story. I should not count on that happening, and taking a realistic perspective with where the story might go. Again, it's kind of an act of self-preservation and non-preciousness.
So that makes me think actually of I saw an interview with Kate DiCamillo, and I've said this on the podcast before, but she said something that I really like connected with, and I think most writers would. But she said, in order to like get what you need to get on the page and make it, you know, like worthy of your time and your care and your motivation, and to actually like want to work on this thing, you need to sort of take off all of the armor and get really vulnerable and, you know, like get to the root of what you're trying to say and actually like put it down, like be as vulnerable as possible, put it all down, get it to where you want it. And then when you pass it off, you have to put all of the armor back on because you don't know how it's going to be perceived. Like, you know, you can sort of talk about that a lot in the writing world. Like, yeah, I wrote this draft, but as soon as I give it to like my critique partners or my agent or an editor, or you put it out into the world or it gets published, there are a lot of other people putting their experience on this story, on this book. And now it's theirs. Like if they're reading it now, this is their story and this is how they are perceiving it, and that's okay. That can be their experience, but you have to be okay with that. And putting the armor back on is sort of a way to put like some distance in between you and being so vulnerable. Like I wrote this story, I feel great about it, I did the thing, but now I need to sort of step back, and now it's your story and you can have your own experience with it, and I can be okay with that, which is a lot harder said or easier said than done. But yeah, she was much more articulate about it than I am, but it was mind-blowing for me at the time.
I really like that. That that give and take of being vulnerable, being authentically ourselves, authentically showing up in our stories. Again, whatever that means. It doesn't have to be autobiographical. Like it can just be pieces of our heart and the things we care about. And simultaneously safeguarding that what matters to us in our story is ours and what matters to others with our stories is theirs. It makes me think about something when you were talking a second ago, Brenna. You said something really powerful that made me just go, like sit there and pause. And you said, what if they don't get it? What if others don't get it? And I know that that is a question that's come up for me in some shape or form. And then I had this thought as I was thinking about this, and the thought was, well, the truth is they're never going to get it. They're never going to get what is mine for my story.
Interesting.
They're going to get what's theirs for my story. Right. And how can we find a way to let ourselves keep our gifts with our story and let them have the gifts that'll be theirs with our story? Josh, you were like pointing excitedly.
Yes. This is something, I mean, yes, this is something I think about actively and often. This notion that communication is a two-way street, even if the transmission is one way. And I've talked about Toastmasters in the past. Toastmasters has been a form of therapy for me. This public speaking program, for those who are not familiar with it. I've been a member for 12, 13 years, something like that. And those 12 or 13 years have been a process of understanding, whether you're standing up and giving a prepared speech or otherwise, that everybody's got their own thing that they're doing. It removes, to me, some of the vulnerability, understanding that I don't have to worry so much about transmitting my heart to them. It's transmitting a version, an interpreted version of my heart in a way that will be received positively or with the intended message. That's really hard to do.
Mm-hmm.
It as you were talking, both of you, I keep thinking about trust. Like you have to have a lot of trust in like the audience or your agent or the editor or whatever. Like you have to, once you let it go, you have to trust that they are, they're going to do what they're going to do with it. And you sort of have to like, just let go of that. Like whatever it is they take from it is just what they're going to take. And so you have to just sort of let them have it and trust in that, like, give and take or transaction or, whatever you want to call it.
And we have to trust in ourselves to be able to navigate the ups and downs and sideways and the in-betweens, which is kind of like what we've been talking about this whole time, is how can we do that? How can we provide ourselves with the support and resources and scaffolding so that we know even on the worst days or weeks or months that we've got it. We've got ourselves. And it doesn't mean we've got it in like, oh, I'm going to keep writing through the pain. No, sometimes we literally just need a break. Sometimes that's hours, sometimes that's days, sometimes that's weeks, and that's okay too. But how do we get ourselves and care for ourselves in this process?
So we're rapidly approaching an hour, and we have not talked much about your own writing. I'm inclined to ask in the I write my heart, I'm vulnerable through my writing sense. What do you bring to your picture books? Is it your work as a therapist and the things that you care about most and you feel is the greatest need? Is it, some of it you've said is autobiographical, but what's your thesis for how you navigate yourself as a Kidlit writer?
I truly want to bring books into the world that help children feel seen, understood, and valued, no matter who they are, where they are, or how they are. And why that feels so vulnerable to me is because when I'm writing, I'm not just writing for my daughter or other children out there. I'm writing for little Danielle, who needed to hear these words herself. And so it is this beautiful, I think, interconnection within me of what I want as a therapist and a mother and a human, and also just how I want to care for and heal little Danielle, who sometimes comes up and still asks those questions, whether it's, am I good enough, or can I do these things? And, or where do I belong in the world? Who can I be? Like that story I mentioned earlier. And I really, really hope these books bring more love and security into the world to readers of all ages, no matter who they are, where they can really look at the pages and go, oh yeah, I do matter, and I'm valued and I'm seen. I'm sappy, told you guys.
You're a therapist. It's okay. Call out your agent.
Rebecca Angus with Howland Literary.
Yeah. You've only been doing this for a year, you said, roughly, maybe a little bit more. Talk about how you and she navigate what you just said, speaking to little Danielle, and how you think about, and maybe you made a face, so maybe that's not something that comes up, and it's a different type of conversation. But I wonder what your relationship looks like with her.
Yeah. Rebecca's amazing. I really am so grateful for us being able to have open and honest communication in the way that we do. So since I've been on sub, we've put a few different books out there actively, and some other ones we've done, like in exclusive submissions and stuff like that. I'm trying to think about, I think the reason I made that face, Josh, is as I was thinking about your question. Yeah, I mean, there's been a couple of times where, for example, I had an R&R recently with, honestly, a dream editor of mine, and it felt very close. It went to she took a couple of my books to acquisitions. It ended up being a pass, and it was really painful for me. And I remember my agent checking in at one point and going, "How do you feel about us sending her another book? Like in the next submission round for the new book?" And I was like, "Yes, let's do it." So her job
ready to get back
is
on
more
that
of
horse?
Our dynamic, I think her role has been more just checking in and helping me learn about what this industry looks like, and knowing that very literally that there's going to be more passes to come, whether it's from her or somebody else, right? But the reason I think I made that face was because when you said that, my thought was, I mean, yes, like there can be, I can reach out and ask for support or ask for clarification and things when I'm feeling confused. But honestly, caring for little Danielle is my job, and it's my work, our work, when we are writing these vulnerable parts of ourselves, to figure out how can I care for this part of me while also being really vulnerable, and how do I find the community that's going to support me, that I can talk to when I'm having hard days, or whether that's our agent or other peers. So I think that was my face, where I think my face was like, oh wait, it isn't anybody's job but my own. And that's how I'm trying to, and again, that does not mean I'm living in this silo. Like I'm leaning into my people and to my agent when I need support in certain ways that their roles make sense for. But it is really important to make sure that I'm doing the work. Otherwise, it will feel a lot more painful.
Right.
That's really interesting. Like that sort of like division of roles, because gosh, we've talked at length on here about agents and just, the interesting dynamic of that sort of like personal and business like conglomeration, and how you are supposed to navigate that, and Like, how do you know they're the one? And then what happens when they're not the one? And like, you know, it's a very strange, like business and emotional interaction all at once, right? But the reality is like, yeah, you can always, you know, reach out to your agent and be like, hey, like what am I doing here? Like, does this one not hit? Like, why are we not getting responses? Like, what do I need to do different? You know, like if you need your agent to just be like, look, I believe in you, you're amazing, your writing is great. You know, if you need like a pep talk, that's great, right? Like your agent totally can do that. That's like a normal thing for writers to, you know, check in about. But in terms of like the overall like emotional care of you, that doesn't lie under an agent's umbrella. You know, that is for you and you alone to take care of. So if you need to outsource that, you know, to a therapist or, you know, friends or spouse or whatever, you know, however you cobble that together. And also, you know,
all the above.
Also, right. And maybe, you know, your agent is a piece of that. Yeah. But that's not, you know, that's not their sole job. Like your agent's job is to get you a book deal, which, you know, it probably was an emotional choice for you to resubmit something else to this editor who had already liked your stuff and then had to pass on your stuff. But your agent is seeing it in a different way where it's like, oh, like she actually really likes your stuff. It's just a matter of time. We have to keep, you know, we should keep submitting. This is a good thing. But for you, it's like, whoa, let me, you know, like I would anyways, if I were you, I would consider it and be like, oh, like, I don't know, like, can I handle getting, you know, close again and maybe being another pass, you know, or alternately,
I mean, things dying in acquisitions can be heart-wrenching.
Oh my gosh. Right. And like more than once too. I mean, it just, so anyways, I guess I just wanted to highlight the fact that like, yeah, that's a really important thing to sort of remember as a writer. Like, you are in control of your sort of emotional well-being, and if you don't feel good about moving forward, then like bring in your professionals and who you want to talk to and your friends and whatever, and you know, maybe reassess or whatever it is you need to do. But your agent's job is to get you a book deal, and so that's very much what she's trying to do. She's like, yeah, this editor likes your stuff, let's do this again. So
yes. So in knowing that we're wrapping up in a second, can I share some wisdom that my husband actually shared with me when I was deciding and if I wanted to revise a story at one point. I remember I was
Your husband has wisdom, by the way?
Yes. I was shouting out to him. He has wisdom. Even being married to a therapist, he can still give me. No, I'm kidding.
Kudos to him as a husband. It's hard to come by wisdom sometimes.
So I remember I was sitting here and there was a piece of a story that I loved so much, and with an R&R I was asked to shift it, or invited to shift it and change it to make it more marketable.
That's kind of them.
And I remember I looked at him and I went, but I really love this story, and talking about like my daughter and I, like she gets it, and I remember he and I were having this conversation, and he was like, Danielle, he was like, and not everybody is going to be you and our daughter, who are going to be deep thinkers and feelers, or, you know, whatever. He was trying to go, what if, he said, what if, Danielle, you writing these stories is, obviously there's a part of it for you, that you're writing for you and our kids, but what if it's also about you making it accessible to all children who don't think and feel the same way you do? And I remember how much that hit me. So I was thinking about your question, Josh, and going, yes, I am writing for little me inside. And that's one of the things, that's the internal rewards, right? Of I'm doing some of my own beautiful love and healing work in the process and just championing that little child. But I'm also learning what it means to write for other children in ways that it's accessible for them, and not just staying stuck in my own egocentric way of thinking and feeling about the world. And when he said that to me, it has been really monumental and impactful, because I want that. I don't want this to be about me. I want it to be a process with and for me, but I want the results to be for others.
Yeah.
Very well considered.
Wow. Yeah. And I mean,
he was wise.
Yeah. Like the wisdom from your husband is like sort of a perfect wrap up of the whole conversation, because I feel like that sort of encapsulates what we're trying to do as Kidlit authors, and just people who are, you know, trying to put feelings and thoughts and humor and jokes and all of the things on paper And then, the whole point is to get them out into the world, to like share them with other people. That's the whole point. Like none of us, nobody listening, none of us here want like a whole Google Doc filled with unpublished stuff. Like the whole point is to share them. Minus the novel and verse I was talking about earlier, which may or may not be shared at some point, but like,
Right.
you know what I'm saying? Like the whole point is like, you want it out in the world and you want to share it. So if you're going to share it, you have to consider the audience and how that interaction is going to happen. So yeah, thanks to your husband for those wise words.
Oh my gosh, guys, I just thought of a zinger. You ready for this?
I'm ready.
Our books start with being for me, but then they transfer to being from me. So it's a gift to me in the process, and it's a gift from me when they go out into the world.
That's perfect. And maybe the title episode.
I have the title of the episode as Bravely Vulnerable right now. But
oh, that's good.
We'll reevaluate.
Josh is good at that.
I love this conversation.
Amazing.
Thank you both for the inspiration that I am leaving with today. My heart is happy.